Hello, Chicago VIP group for entrepreneur empowered women of Chicago. Wow, what a beginning. I always want to call them the entrepreneurs, but they're empowered women.
Yeah. Well, some of them probably are entrepreneurs too. So
right.
Yeah, we're ready to kick off another great Purse Strings event for this amazing group of women. And tonight we're not going to say the B word.
Budget. Oh, right.
It's a spending plan.
Spending plan. That's what we're going to talk about. And Purse Strings wants to give a shout out to Liz and say thank you, Liz, for allowing us to participate in your group and to share Purse Strings with your ladies in the group, pursestrings.co. We provide free online tools and resources for women, all things financial, always free resources, and a cadre of top-tier financial professionals like Stephanie, who we have here today. Lots of different experts in different areas, all things financial. And when you're ready to use a financial professional, we just say go to Purse Strings and look them up on our Purse Strings approved professional list and select whomever you need to work with. They've been trained and vetted by us, and they are ready and willing to serve a female market the way that women want to be served. So your needs, your desires, your concerns will be always front and center, and you'll never be pushed to product. So that's the whole mission of Purse Strings, provide you free tools and resources to arm yourself with some knowledge and some skill, and then also a full-blown cadre of different financial professionals who are ready to help you out whenever you need it. So that's Purse Strings. We hope you'll join us and use our resources.
So we're so excited to keep spreading the word with other groups of empowered women. So tonight we have Stephanie. We'll give a couple minutes before we get started, but we're so excited to have you here. And we'd love anyone checking in just to let us know where you're coming from and what you're excited to learn about this week. And we have a whole week of events actually going on this week. So leading up to a seminar on Saturday about home buying and mortgages, which is great, with Michelle and Marla. Marla spoke last night. So,
yeah. And that's Saturday at 11 in the morning Central Time.
So Stephanie, where are you coming in from tonight?
I'm coming in from the suburbs of Philadelphia. I'm actually a stone's throw away from Villanova University. It's like right down out my window.
Oh, wow. How exciting.
That's neat. Yeah.
And how long have you been there?
I grew up here. My son last year graduated from the same high school that I went to.
Oh, wow.
But I did live in Washington, D.C. for a time in between.
Oh, wonderful. Exciting.
Yeah, East Coaster.
Yeah.
Great.
But I do love Chicago. I've got a good client in Chicago area, and I've got a very good friend in Chicago, so I do love to come visit the city. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon.
Yeah, we'll be having coffee with everybody once everything opens. We have a lot of coffee appointments in Chicago, which I'm pretty excited about. So
yeah, that's for sure. Meg, can they just shout out in the Facebook group and just put in their questions there, right in the group?
Yep, everyone can just throw their questions in and we'll ask them throughout, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. So let me start by giving a little intro to Stephanie. She helps professional women reduce financial stress by aligning their money stories with their deepest held values. Stephanie is non-judgmental, is a non-judgmental financial advisor. Her team works hard to create a safe space to have the intimate conversations necessary. Since money touches all of the most important parts of our lives, we have to talk about it before we can decide what you should do with your dollars. So Stephanie, it's so great having you here today, and we'll give you the floor to get started.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Barb. This is great to be here. Thank you, VIP Women of Chicago, Empowered Women. I love this. I do have a little slideshow to show you because, you know, it's COVID world, so that's what we're going to do. But of course, I have to get it set first. Push the right button. Here we go. All right. I'm getting there. Share screen. It'll be worth the wait, I promise. Okay. So our topic tonight really is one part of you stepping into your power around money. And I'm so thrilled that you're here to pay attention to this. I have to say, whether we like it or not, money is an essential thing in our world. And yet many of us find this really to be a stressful topic. We might find it distasteful, or maybe at some point in our lives, we were told that we're not good at money. And often we think like, oh my gosh, I have to be good at math to do the money stuff. I want to tell you, none of that is actually true. I firmly believe, and I know Maggie and Barb agree with this, the world will be a better place when more women are financially secure and control more money. Not because money is a good thing, not because it has an inherent, value to it. Money is neutral, but it is a tool. And it's a tool that we need in order to provide for ourselves and for our families, both the necessities of life and the things that make life more enjoyable. And it's also a tool that we use to support others. So this is my favorite definition of money. And it comes from Eleanor Blaney, who was a pioneer in the area of financial planning, one of the early women financial planners. I just love this. She says, money is just grease. It does not do anything on its own, but properly used with foresight and reason, it makes things happen, makes things go. By itself, it is a toxic substance and can be very messy. Applied sensibly on a routine basis, it can make life run more smoothly. And that's what we're all after, right? Research actually proves that when a woman becomes financially secure, she turns her attention to helping her family and her community and those around her. Women and men do have different priorities around money, and maybe it's because I'm a woman, but I happen to prefer our priorities. So I'm all for women stepping into their power around money. So Barb mentioned before the B word. Let's just tackle that word budget right up front. Budgeting gets a bad rap, right? The phrase we often use is living within a budget. That sounds like a cage. It sounds like restriction and deprivation and being told what we can't do. So I do prefer the term spending plan just because it doesn't have those connotations, but it's really the same thing. It's not an exercise about deprivation. It's actually about freedom and choice. It's about knowing where your money goes and deciding to make intentional choices about how to direct your dollars so that you can achieve what you want, both now and in the future. The majority of women I talk to don't actually know where all their dollars are going, and they're embarrassed about that fact. So let's just talk a little bit of truth right here. Human beings are bad with money. Now notice I didn't say Barb is bad with money, or Maggie, or Stephanie, or Susan, or Josephine, or Tatiana. Humans are bad with money. First of all, no one teaches us about money. We're not allowed to talk about it with our friends, but science also proves that we're actually wired to make financial mistakes. So there's a whole field called behavioral finance. And there's actually been 2 Nobel Prizes in economics won by psychologists. Why would that make any sense? Well, if you remember back, if you ever took an economics class, it was the only class I ever fell asleep in undergrad, true story. They believe that everyone's all perfectly rational and that human beings, they have the term homo economos, economic man, of course, but they believe that, everyone's perfectly rational, coolly weighs all the pros and cons of every decision before doing anything. Well, the psychologists came along and they're like, humans don't do that in any other phase of life, so why the heck would they do that around their money? So there's a mountain of evidence. There's college courses, like I said, 2 Nobel Prizes proving that we're wired to be bad at money. And this is my favorite book title in the subject by Professor Dan Ariely from Duke, Predictably Irrational. So not only are we irrational about money, we are irrational in predictable ways. To me, that means that we can start leaving this shame and blame behind. We can stop beating ourselves up over the fact that maybe we don't have as much in our retirement plan as we should have, right? Whenever we start shoulding on ourselves, that's a sign that we're putting someone else's expectations there. Maybe I bounced a check last year and that's embarrassing, right? all these things that we tend to do, they have actually a biological basis. So it doesn't prove that we have a character flaw. It just proves that we're human. So we're going to stop beating ourselves up. I hope everyone can agree to that. And instead, we're going to learn some strategies for how to be smarter with our money so we can get what we want, so we can control our futures. Years ago, I was able to hear Professor Mayer Statman, who's another behavioral finance guy, talk at a conference. And I love this idea. He said, everything that we buy actually has 3 levels of value. The utilitarian value. So the pair of shoes that I bought last week will protect my feet when I cross the rough ground. Then there's the emotional value. The red high heels that I bought last week make me feel unstoppable and like a total badass. And then there's the expressive value. I happen to believe that if someone looks at me and sees me wearing the red high heels, they're going to have a certain idea and impression about me. So 3 levels of value to all of our purchases. I think this helps bring some mindfulness and some intentionality to our money actions. If we can kind of pause when we're buying something and saying, which one is driving me right here? If there was only one level of value, right? If we only had the utilitarian value, just think about it. Cars, there would only be differences on size. There wouldn't be colors and, levels of snazziness and luxury and sophistication and all that other stuff, right? The brand marketers, believe me, they know this stuff. So I want all of us to know and be aware of it as well. The first thing we need to do when we're talking about spending plans, really when we're talking about anything we do with our money, whether it's spending, saving, investing, borrowing, lending, giving, the first step, and I often call it step 0, is to get super clear on your personal values, your priorities. What's most important to you in life? Your goals. What are you trying to create for your own future, for your family, for those around you? That really has to be the beginning of it. Money's a tool. We use it to get the things that we want. What is it that you want, right? That's really got to be the beginning of the exercise. But then there's also another important part, which is bringing some self-awareness to our relationship with money. What feelings do you have when you have to write a big check, for example? Let's say you've got to write a big check for taxes when April 15th comes around. How does that make you feel? Or if you all of a sudden get a windfall, you get a bonus you didn't expect it. How does that make you feel? Doing some self-reflection on our feelings and the stories behind them, as well as then what behavior patterns come about as a result of those feelings, right? Maybe I get super anxious if I log on and see my bank account is really low. And then that leads me to get snippy with my partner. And then I feel guilty and I make up for it by buying an expensive meal. I don't know. Whatever the patterns might be, right? I heard one person years ago say, what are your leakages? We're talking about cash flow, right? Dollars in and out. Where do the dollars kind of get detoured and kind of, off track? Where do they leak out of the system? Maybe where you didn't intend originally. And when is that most likely to happen? Are you maybe, good and virtuous all week, sticking to the plan, and then Sunday night comes along and you're starting to feel a little bit of stress around the week ahead of time, and maybe have a glass of wine or 2, and then you get an email about a sale at your favorite boutique, and 3 clicks later, you've blown the plan? Oh no, sorry, that's just me. That's one of my patterns. So actually what I did was direct the emails from my favorite boutique automatically into another folder in my inbox, so I didn't see them. And actually my spending went down quite a bit. Another one was when my kids were younger, I'm in the Philadelphia area, we have a convenience store in this area that's much beloved called Wawa. Yes, it's called Wawa. Anytime we walk into Wawa to buy 2 things, we'd come out with 15 things, right? And I was like, I deserve it. The kids are annoying me. I just want to shut them up. I'm going to get them a treat, right? That was another one of my leakages. So the self-awareness is also very helpful to do. So step 0, knowing what's most important to you. What is it you're trying to achieve? And then figuring out some of that reflection about what happens to you around, these various things that happen to us a lot around money. So what are some tools that we can use if we're trying to figure out this spending plan? I mean, this is something that we've got to do, all of us. We're really not taught about money. In my high school, there was one class on accounting. There was nothing about personal finance. I have spoken to women graduating from MBA programs who said, yes, they know all about investing or corporate finance, but not about personal finance. We don't get this stuff. We just kind of have to stumble around and figure it out on our own. So sharing a few tools with you. This first one, yeah, you know what? It's not very sexy. It doesn't really sound like very much fun, but there's kind of no way to get around the need to follow your dollars, right? Show me the money, Jerry Maguire said. Figuring out where your dollars are going, whether you use an app, whether you use pencil and paper, really whatever system works for you. People often ask me what the best system is. And I would say it's the system that works for you, the system you're actually going to use. A big obstacle that I think a lot of women face with this type of task is that they might, start to look at, maybe you're looking at your past few months of spending and they're adding things up and they go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spent that much at Nordstrom. Well, guess what? That voice, that story, the numbers on the page are not judging you. The judgment is coming from in here. Maybe it's your grandmother's voice. Maybe it's something you've picked up along the way. We often feel guilt and shame around money. The numbers aren't judging you. If we can get into a place of non-judgment towards ourselves, of compassion, empathy towards ourselves, that's going to be really helpful. And I often recommend, if you can, finding a money buddy, a friend, maybe a family member, maybe your spouse or partner, somebody you can be super open and honest with about your goals and your values and about your numbers. It's very helpful to have both the accountability partner, but also the kind of talk you off the ledge partner, right? Someone who can be supportive and help you remember that, spending too much at Nordstrom one month is not sign of a character flaw. Again, it is part of our human experience. Why is it important to write this down? That which is measured changes. So whether you're writing down your past spending to figure out where your dollars are going, or I also think it's helpful, at least for a period of time, to write down the things as you spend them. That often changes your behavior. Even sometimes, like, oh my gosh, if I go buy that coffee on the way to work, then I got to write it down in my notebook. And maybe that changes you and you don't do it. Or maybe it's looking back at your spending and finding, oh, I still had that subscription to Disney Plus. I only got it to watch Hamilton once, and now I'm still paying for it, right? All those types of things. So the next piece of this, though, is once you've got the information, then you want to go back to your values and hold the two side by side. So for each line item of your spending, which of my values does that support? Years ago, I taught a class on the spending plan question, and there was a woman there. She was a housekeeper at a local hospital. She did not make a lot of money. And besides her, kind of rent and essential expenses, her biggest line item of costs every year was sending her grandson to baseball camp. That's awesome. That brought her so much joy. Her grandson's mother could not afford it, so she was able to do it for her. That's awesome. So, that was super in line with her values of family and giving her grandson amazing experiences. So there might be some things you find that are totally in line with your values and other things that are not. It has to be very personal to you. All right, tool number 2, the anti-budget. What the heck is an anti-budget? The short version is it's kind of flipping things on its head, right? Often we think of budget and we think, all right, I've got $200 this month to spend on eating out. and I'm only allowed to spend this much money on something else. The anti-budget is the opposite. First of all, you make sure you pay all the essentials, and then what's left you can spend. Now, it's a little bit trickier than that, but either way, you've got to get clear on what is my essential spending and what is my kind of optional or discretionary or nice to have spending. So that's a useful thing to know too. The trouble with the anti-budget though is often we look at our monthly bills, the things we pay each month, and we add those up and we figure that's all we have to do. But you've also got to take your future self into account. Make sure you're including money to go to your emergency fund, right? In case you've got a big expense that you didn't expect that comes up. Make sure you're saving for your future needs, right? Maybe you're saving up for a vacation when this all ends, or to spend on the holidays. Maybe you're planning to buy a house, or there's a wedding in the family you need to pay for. Those future things. Maybe you need a new car in a couple of years. You've got to account for that in your anti-budget as well. Retirement. If you're fortunate enough to have a retirement plan through work, that is often taken care of for you through your paycheck. You usually have to sign up and make sure you're putting enough in. But these other things, you have to set that up by yourself on your own. So don't forget the future stuff. Don't forget the unpleasant but necessary stuff, right? Taxes, your insurance premiums, paying, making sure you have money set aside for car repair, for home maintenance. We just had a tree fall on our garage 2 weeks ago. And yes, we have homeowners insurance, but there's a deductible. So we're going to have to write a $1,000 check for that. Those kinds of things are very important. Future stuff, unpleasant stuff, and then the things that don't happen every single month, whether it's spending on the holidays, or maybe your taxes, maybe you're paying tuition a couple times a year. All those things, you need to also plan for that as well. And consider doing a regular contribution to those items. You got to automate as much as you can so that these things get paid automatically. And then what's left over, you can spend. Be sure to work some fun into your budgeting, to your anti-budget. We're not saying that you have to live like a monk today and defer all enjoyment, right? That doesn't work. If you try to go cold turkey, you're just going to binge on something down the road, right? It's like dieting in that way. So you do have to work in the fun. What do you do if all these numbers add up and the spending is more than it's coming in? That's when you need to maybe make some hard decisions, right? And bring up that values chart again. I talked to a friend not long ago, and she was paying quite a bit for an apartment to be close to her work. She still has to go to her office. And we were talking about the pros and cons of moving farther away, paying less in rent. That would free up money for other things, but then she'd have a longer commute. So, right, there's trade-offs for all of this stuff. Unless you're Bill Gates, you've got limited resources and you've got to have trade-offs. And it's all very personal decisions. All right, tool number 3, separate accounts. One of the findings of behavioral finance is what we call mental accounting. Even though every single dollar could do the same thing for you, right? A dollar is a dollar is a dollar, but we don't feel that way and we don't tend to treat money that way. Think of the last time you got a winter coat out from the closet, put your hand in the pocket and found a $20 bill. How do you behave with that $20 bill? It might be very different than if you had to go withdraw it from your checking account. We tend to treat different pots of money differently. So I say, let's use this to our advantage. I'm a big fan of, if you can find a bank that's not going to charge you crazy fees, setting up different bank accounts for different purposes. So in tip number 2, when we were talking about, the different future items, if you're saving up for a daughter's wedding, having an account for that and putting money into that, right? It helps you keep things straight, but it also, I think, makes us less tempted to raid that account for a different purpose, right? Are you really going to take money out of daughter's wedding account to, help with new tires for the car? So how can we kind of trick ourselves into doing what is right? Again, paying attention to what works best for you is the key. Having some compassion for yourself, go easy on yourself. If you've got a life partner and you're doing this together, go easy on each other. Be empathetic with each other. Tip number 4, tool number 4, it's very helpful to have a process in place. And maybe this isn't every single financial decision, but let's say, anything over $200 or $1,000 or whatever it might be. If you can have a process that you go through every single time, it puts a little bit of pause between the impulse to buy and the actual pulling the trigger. And that pause lets you reflect on, again, these things, what's most important to you. So these are the questions I suggest that you ask. Number 1, how does this decision impact progress towards my short-term goals and my long-term goals? I mean, this could be buying a pair of boots or buying a new house or making an investment, right? How does this decision impact my goals? So I told you about my red high heels. I could have called my money buddy and said, oh, these awesome red high heels I just found. And she might have said, but remember, you've got your kids' tuition to pay in 3 months. And I might have said, thank you very much, click, right? Just that kind of reminder of the big picture. Question number 2, do I know what it costs? That might seem like a dumb question. There's a price tag, right? But we have to look at the total lifetime cost of something. If I'm talking about buying a house, you've got to remember that a house requires maintenance and a house requires real estate taxes. If I'm talking about buying clothing, does it have to be dry cleaned or can I wash it myself? Now, we're all only wearing sweatpants anymore. I get it, but you get my point. And then if you're buying something on credit, you've got to take that full price into account. How soon can you pay it off? How much are you going to pay in interest? If you've bought a house, you've had that joyous experience of sitting at the closing table and signing the papers and saying, I'm paying how much in mortgage payments for 30 years? It can be a big number. So we got to take that into account as well. Number 3, this is a good one. This is kind of back to our 3 levels of value. What am I hoping this purchase will do for me? And am I being realistic? Are those red high heels going to make me feel unstoppable and going to improve my business? Or are they just going to hurt my feet and they're going to sit in my closet and I'm never going to wear them, right? Check in with yourself on that. Number 4, what are the trade-offs? There are always trade-offs involved. Whether it's these dollars I'm spending over here could be used for something else or, whatever it might be, there's always trade-offs. And if you're not seeing the trade-off, that's a sign you need to pause, take a step back, and look a little deeper. And then number 5, how's your willpower? There's been all kinds of studies also about the willpower, and it is actually a limited resource. It runs low. So if you're feeling tired or stressed, like me on my Sunday evenings with my glass of wine and my clicking, they've done studies about judges. And at the end of the day, when they're tired or before lunch when they're hungry, they are harsher on the people coming before them in the courtrooms. If you're being pressured to do something, right, that affects our perceptions of things and our ability to make truly objective decisions. So check in with yourself on that. This is my big motto. You don't have to know all the answers. You need to know the questions to ask and have the guts to ask them. So here, a lot of it is asking questions of yourself. Again, if you've got a partner you do money with, asking questions together, and keep asking, right? That's the key. This is one of my favorite drawings by Carl Richards. He has the sketch guide column in the New York Times. If it's in your budget, meaning, if you've planned on it, if it fits in your amount that you make and it's something you value, enjoy it. Let's try to leave the guilt and the shame and the blame behind. So I congratulate you on being here tonight. I hope you got a couple takeaway tidbits. I do invite you to check out, I've got some free online workshops. Follow me on social media. I am going to stop sharing now so we can get to some questions.
Wow, that was fantastic information. I mean, if anyone's getting started on really adjusting their spending plan, that is everything that you need to know. I mean, it really gets you off on the right foot. We'd love anyone to throw in any questions that they still have, but we do have a couple questions lined up. And so one of the first questions, and I don't want to get too into your money, but how many different accounts should people have? I mean, there's these different things of housing expenses and vacations and college and Christmas and different things. How many accounts should a person have open if that's their style?
Right. And, so I think to me, the accounts are for the things you're kind of saving up for, or the things that happen less than every month, right? If it's a monthly bill, you can probably pay it automatically from your main checking, zip it out there. But if it's something you need to set aside, then, I'm a fan, right? Maybe a vacation account, maybe, if you're paying tuition a couple times a year, or if you don't escrow your taxes can be a big thing. If you're self-employed and you're going to have to pay taxes, that's very important to make sure you put a good chunk, right? Talk with your accountant on what percentage that should be of all your income going to that tax bucket so that you've got it when you've got to write the check. How many? I mean, again, I think that's personal. I luckily have a bank where they're not charging me, and I can give them all little nicknames in the app. So when I look in, I can say, oh, look how much I have in my vacation account because I haven't gone anywhere for a year.
So that's great that they can be divided and labeled. So you really know, and you actually have those buckets. They're not just like mental compartment buckets, but visual buckets.
Yeah, I think to me, the labeling is key, right? Because then it's that visual reminder that money has a purpose. You've designated that money for a purpose. And if you're going to rate it for something else, it better be a really good reason.
That's great. And what's the best way to plan for some of these budgets? Would you say, like, if you celebrate a big holiday, dividing the amount you spend normally the holiday up for every month, or what's the best way to kind of fill those buckets also and then spend some?
Yeah. I mean, the goal with all of this, right, is to get to the point where when you have the big expense, you've already got the money set aside. You really don't want to have to use your credit cards or other, borrowing, because then you've got to pay somebody interest for the privilege of using their dollars. So earn it before you spend it, as opposed to spending on credit card, which is spending it before you earned it. So, how to do it, if I pay, I used to pay my daughter's school tuition once a year. So I would divide that by 12. And, after I kind of emptied the account with writing that heart-stopping check, then I would start trying to put monthly amounts in the account again. If you've got irregular income, then it's kind of a different calculation. Sometimes it's things that you've got a little discretion, right? Like maybe the holidays come up, whatever the big holidays are for you, or it's a birthday, you would ideally like to spend, I don't know, $750, but you only got to $550. Okay, then you can adjust your spending based on what you've put aside, or you can decide if you want to raise something else to beef it up, right? But again, to me, it's kind of liberating that you're able to put the money there and then spend it, as opposed to feeling like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul and, skimping here and there. So if you can remind yourself that, okay, not going out to dinner this month is because we're saving it for this thing in the future, that's helpful.
That's great. Yeah, it is. You got to think ahead a little bit, but it's worth it. It's worth it for your future self. And another question is a little bit more about this money partner you keep talking about. Can you dive more into that? Who do you have a money partner, or what would be a money partner, or how does this relationship kind of work?
Yeah, a money buddy. I mean, to me, it stems back from this, the fact that it's still in most circles impolite to talk about money. And, I was brought up
not in this circle. We talk about it.
This is why we're here. But, for a lot of us, it's a little awkward to bring it up with friends or family. So usually, I don't know, most people, when I talk to them, like they can figure out, oh, I've got that one friend, like we're honest about everything. I can see if he's comfortable, talking money with me. And what you want is a non-judgmental situation where you can come clean and being like, I can't believe I just did that. Or, my account balance is, negative 200, or, whatever it might be, so that you can get the support. Because otherwise we tend to spin around in our heads, right? It's hard to make decisions. It's hard to get a focus and a direction. And we're not experts. Okay. I'm been a financial planner for 23 years. Maybe I'm an expert. And
you're the expert.
Well, most people are doing other things with their time and their efforts. They don't want to have to become a personal finance expert. So if you can find that person just to be the perspective bringer, like getting out of your own head to help you see things more clearly. That's why I think the real value comes in.
That's great. That's great. Dr. Barb, do you have another question before we wrap up here?
I do. I love the conversation, and I love how, you can really go to the internet and download any kind of grid that shows you all the different expenses you should be, thinking about. And I love that you didn't start there, because that's just your basics. Like, you can get that anywhere and write it out. What you're really approaching it is being financially conscious about your money and where it's going, and that it's a plan, and plans can ebb and flow a little bit as they need to. But having a plan in place means that you're being conscious about where you want your money to be going. And we've all been in that place where you got your money and you paid your bills and you're like, eek, I don't really have a lot of money left. Right? So it's okay, like you were saying with your friend, to reevaluate where's your money going. Like, one thing my husband and I did when we moved to the city, we sold our cars. We got rid of our cars because it's really expensive to park your car. We didn't want any more car payments. We didn't want car insurance. We didn't want the car stickers. And we couldn't Uber enough around the city to pay for all of what that would accommodate. And we're not really car people. It wasn't of value to us. And I can't tell you how much it saved us money. But we might spend it, we live in a nice building, so we might invest a little bit more in the building itself. So you can go back and really reevaluate how you're currently spending your money. In fact, I wrote this document called 50 Ways to Save Right Now, and it points to a lot of those leakages. And we have that on our site. And there's so many ways that you can really go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was still paying $9.99 a month for something that you never did, or I'm still paying for my gym membership that I never go to, or I'm still paying for whatever it might be ongoing, deposits to my venture card, and I'm not taking the train anymore. You can stop a lot of that and save yourself some money. So it's really about evaluating where your money's going, and you feel good. You feel good when you do that. Even if it's not as much as you want or hoped, at least you know where your money is going.
Yeah. I mean, that does bring a sense of empowerment. And, I think it's important to check in. Am I doing these things because it's really my value? Or does everyone in my street have a fancy car, so I feel like I have to have the fancy car? Right?
Definitely.
I have a client who, in the before times, was having to commute like an hour and a half each way. She had a nice fancy car, and that was a big line item in her budget. But she said, I spend so much of my time in that car every day that I want to be comfortable. And she was willing to cut back in other areas. So she was the only one in her street with that car, that fancy. But like that, it's got to be personal to you.
Right.
And that's you're really going to, be able to stick with it.
Right. Yeah, all this information is terrific. It's great. So thank you so much, Stephanie. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Time flew.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your night here with us. And we will do a quick little overview handout tomorrow. We'll present, and people can also find this under the guide section on this Facebook page. So the recording will be there as well as the handout. And then tomorrow we are going to have how to pay down debt. And so now that we know about our credit score through this week and how to align our spending plan, it's a way to tackle that debt and really take things on. And so we'll be here every night at 7 o'clock. And at the end of the week, well, Saturday, we'll be on at 11 in the morning for a housing or buying a home workshop, which will be more like 2 hours long, but to really get immersed in that. So congratulations everyone for coming tonight and becoming financially fearless. Thank you again, Stephanie. And you can reach her at stephanie@sophiafinancial.com. She also has a page on our pursestrings.co website because she is a Purse Strings approved provider. So thank you everyone for spending your Tuesday with us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.